So students, I'll start with the lecture, assuming I'll admit the participants when and they enter. So in the previous lecture, we started with measuring or quantifying risk. Now, quantifying risk means we will actually calculate risk in numbers. So for doing that, there are various statistical techniques which are used. We started with learning first one of them, which was calculating variance on the project or investment or the stock or security we are trying to invest in. So today we will be continuing with the sums. Variance is done. We'll be continuing with variance and then following standard deviation. Just to remind you students what we did in the previous lecture, we started calculating variance and that too of two different scenarios. That is in the case in one, the probability is given and the other case where the probability was not given. In both the cases, since variance is nothing but we are trying to find out how much volatility or fluctuations can be seen from the expected return, how much volatility the return can show when compared to expected return. To measure that, we use variance. So the first step of every sum which we will be doing is to calculate the expected return. Now expected return is nothing but the mean or the average return when we talk about number of years given below. And with when the probability is given, the formula changes. Today we will only be doing sums on both variance and standard deviations. Also the practical use of how those numbers helps us to make a decision or take a call whether or not to invest in a project. Is the whiteboard visible? Shall continue in the same or else I'll use the WPS as I was using in the last lecture, a word file. I'll create a table or type something. Just tell me if it is visible or not. Okay. Tell me, is the screen visible to you people where I've written variance with probability? Class. Okay. So today we'll be continuing with variance and learning sums on standard deviations. Now the difference between variance and standard deviation is not much. It is nothing. But when I say, if you know the formula for variance, so the form, sorry, I had to mute myself for a moment. Now continuing standard deviations. Now standard deviations is nothing but on simple terms, I'll say square root of variance. Standard deviation is nothing but square root of the variance. You know, while calculating, after calculating deviations, if you remember what is deviations, it is nothing but the change. So after calculating the deviations for variance, we used to square it. हम क्या करते थे, अपने वेरिएंस का स्क्वायर करते थे एंड देन वी यूज्ड टू कैलकुलेट द नंबर. Now once you get the variance, whatever our variance is, suppose in the previous sum we had got a variance of 8%. Taking square root of that 8%, whatever my answer is the standard deviation. There are two ways to calculate it. Either I can calculate the variance of the security or the investment, or I can calculate standard deviations. Now, once you know how to calculate variance, the calculation of standard deviations is very simple. Square root of whatever you are getting. Square root of variance is nothing but standard deviation. Class, is the PDF visible to you, students? Unmute your mic because I won't be able to go to the chat box again and again now. So I'm going to the page of the PDF of the sum. Is the PDF visible? Reply. Okay, so look over here. I've taken certain screenshots of the questions which we'll be doing today. Now, the first question which I'm talking about over here, a certain company A, the returns of the company, that is, if you invest in the securities of this company, might it be shares or any project or any funds, in that the returns are given and the probability is given. The returns are 6%, 7%, 8, 9, and 10 respectively. The probabilities are also listed down. This is a sum where the probabilities and the returns are given. So we'll be using the second formula which we had studied in the last lecture. Now, if you people remember the steps, what was the steps? So over here, once the return is given, which is in our sum 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Once these returns are given, the probability is also given. So we'll copy down the probability. It is 0.10, 0.25, 0.30, again 0.25, and then 0.10. So the probabilities and the returns of the companies of the security is given. Looking at this probability, they have told you to calculate the standard deviation. Now, the calculation of standard deviation is very simple if you know how to calculate your variance. The first thing for calculating either variance or standard deviation is calculation of expected return. Now, to calculate expected the return, what is the formula? It is P into R. Now, what is P? The probability, and what is R? The returns. 6 tens are 60. So it would be 0.6. Next, 0.25 into 7. Next, it will be 0.30 into 8. Next, 0.25 into 9. And last column जो होगा वो आपका कौन सा column होगा? The last column will be the column of total. Whatever total you are getting in this column will be your expected return. मैं expected return को ER लिख रही हूँ. You can assume it as ER, or you can say it is nothing but your mean या average return. So the first thing whenever you are starting the sum or solving the sum of standard deviation or variance is calculation of expected return. How do we calculate that? Multiplying your returns into probability and then getting a total of it. So see, the solution over here is already given. 6 into 0.10 is 0.06, then 0.25 into 7 is 1.75, 0.30 into 8 is 2.40, 0.25 into 9 is 2.25, and 0.10 is 1. So over here we have the solution with us. We are getting a total expected return of what percentage? 8%. So the expected return is 8%. Once you find out the expected return, what is the next step? It is x minus x bar. Now over here the security was assumed with the letter R. So I'll be R minus R bar. That is the expected return. Return minus expected return. तो यहाँ पे आप सारे numbers को किससे minus करने वाले हो? 8 से. You'll be subtracting every number with 8. Now 6 minus 8 minus 2. 7 minus 8 minus 1. 8 minus 8 0. 9 minus 8 1. 10 minus 8 2. ये आपका क्या कैलकुलेट किया आपने? दिस यू हैव कैलकुलेटेड योर deviations in the sum. What have you calculated? Your deviations. What do we calculate next? What do we calculate next? The next thing is we square these deviations. Now square of a positive number is positive and square of a negative number is also positive. So 2 ka square would be 4. 1 ka square would be 1. Then followed by 0. Again 1 and 4. Can anybody tell me what is the next, or write in the chat box what is the next step? If you people remember, after calculating expected return, हमने deviations निकाला, deviations का square किया. What is the next step? Class, what is the next step? I shouldn't be the only one speaking. You people are supposed to speak and answer. At least write in the chat box next step. So nobody remembers what is supposed to be done. Okay, so the next step would be where we multiply the probability into the returns which we have calculated, or the square of the deviations. The next step is where we multiply these deviations into probability. So what we have to do is multiply by 4 into 0.10, the answer is 0.40. Next, 1 into 0.25 will be 0.25. 0 into 0.30 will be 0. 1 into 0.25 is 0.25. And 4 into zero point 0.1 is 0.4, getting a total of 1.30. What is this 1.30? Answer of your variance. When we take a root, square root of 1.30, what we are getting is 1.14, and that is your standard deviation. Everybody will make a note of the change. Over here it is 0.40. Next, 0.25. Again 0. Again 0.25. And 0.40, giving us a total of 1.30. Giving us a total of 1.30. So the variance, the percentage is very less over here, which is 1.30. Taking square root of 1.30, taking square root of 1.30, what answer are we getting? 1.14. We are getting an answer of 1.14. Everybody will look at the sum, and if they have any query, ask. The steps for standard deviations are nothing new. Whatever we studied in the previous lecture, following the same thing. When we get the answer, we just have to take the square root of that answer, and that is nothing but the standard deviation. See, the returns do not have much variations in them. The रिटर्न्स हैव बीन कॉन्स्टेंटली इंक्रीजिंग 6 पे 7 फिर 8 और उसकी प्रोबेबिलिटीज लिखी है, तो उस प्रोबेबिलिटीज को चेक करके कि द हायर प्रोबेबिलिटी दैट इज 8% रिटर्न का है, द हाईएस्ट प्रोबेबिलिटी फॉर द रिटर्न्स इज 8% एंड वो कितना है 30% है, 30.30 प्रोबेबिलिटी एंड द लोएस्ट और हाईएस्ट की प्रोबेबिलिटी सेम है दैट इज 0.10%. So the variation is not much. Since the variation is not much, आपका standard deviation का जो point है वो भी सिर्फ कितना आया है 1.14. It means your expected returns if getting changed, आपके expected returns से ज़्यादा change आपको नहीं दिखेगा. The risk is less over here. Although the return is 8%, the risk associated with that project is very less. Students, have you made the note of the change which I did? React with a thumbs sign, react something so that I understand. And if you have a query, write in the chat box. Okay. We will do another sum. All our sums today will either be based on standard deviations or variance. We'll be solving all the sums in the same way. Okay. I would like you people to take a note of the question because this will be how actual questions are our dealings, how sums are supposed to be solved. Over here, see, the rate of return of stock A and B under different status of economy are given below. There are three conditions mentioned: boom, normal, or recession. Boom is where the economy is growing and the market situations are favorable. During that period, you'd always have a higher return. Normal is when the circumstances are supposed to be average, and recession is where the economy is not having a very desirable outcome and there might be high inflation or something like that. Probability is given, return on stock A and B both are given. First thing is calculate expected return and standard deviation of both the stock. Many a times they do use the word total risk. The word total risk means that you are expected to calculate the standard deviations. The next question is very important because this is how you actually take a call whether or not you have to invest in the project or not. So if you could invest in either stock A or stock B but not in both, which stock would you prefer? If you are wishing to invest in both, it is okay, but suppose if you have an option कि मुझे कौन से stock में invest करना चाहिए, this is how we usually get confused while taking a call. So आप क्या करोगे, जो भी आपके पास data collect किया हुआ है आपने past returns का, उस data से आप दोनों का returns निकालेंगे, दोनों के एक्सपेक्टेड रिटर्न्स को कैलकुलेट करेंगे, फिर दोनों के आप कैलकुलेट करेंगे रिस्क को यूजिंग स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन. वंस यू हैव बोथ, वी विल सी हाउ टू मेक द डिसीजन और कॉल ऑन वेदर टू इन्वेस्ट इन विच ऑफ द either of the securities, either stock A or stock B. Okay, so I'll be copying this question in the word file which I have, not the whole question but only the part where I have to write the numbers. So we have returns with us and probability given. Probability and returns are given for three situations. The first thing which we calculate always is expected return. Then we calculate the deviations. How are the deviations calculated? What is the formula? It is returns minus the expected return. What do we do then? Then we square these deviations. हम क्या करते हैं, इन deviations का square करते हैं. Next is squaring those deviations. And the last step is multiplying it with the probabilities. Okay. So now, first what we are doing is we are calculating for which asset. We are calculating it for the what are we doing? We are calculating it for stock A. We are trying to calculate it first for stock A, and then we will repeat the process for stock B. Once both is done, then comes the last part of comparison or making a decision. 352. So the probability is 0.3, 0.5 and 0.2. Let me check what are the three returns for the same. 30%, 50% and 70%. 30, 50 and 70. Now, when I tell you to find out the expected return, what are we supposed to do? Multiply the probabilities with the return. So the first thing would be 30 into 0.3. 33 is a 90. Your 33 is 90. Since there is a point over there, it will be 0.9. Next, 50 into 0.5. 50 into 0.555 is a 25. So the answer over here would be 25. I believe the question is visible to you students now. Start working on it, and in a minute then we'll receive the solution. Class, is the solution of the sum visible? Niti, react, bacha, since you are the only one responding and other some students. Okay, I'll discuss the solution like this only. You can have a calci with you so that you'll be able to check whether how it is done. So the first thing what we were discussing is the probabilities are given and the returns are given. To calculate the expected return, the formula over here is submission of P into R, probability into returns. 30 into